Have you ever felt like you just don't belong? Like no matter how hard you try, you're always on the outside looking in? Well, let me tell you about a guy named Leo. His story might just change how you see things. Leo wasn't the captain of the football team or the most popular guy in school. He was just Leo. He came from a family that didn't have much. His clothes were a little worn, his backpack was patched up, and he worked a part-time job after school just to help his mum pay the bills. While other kids were talking about the latest video games or planning weekend trips, Leo was either stocking shelves at the local grocery store or buried in his textbooks at the library. He was incredibly smart, always at the top of his class, but that didn't exactly make him a social superstar. He was quiet, kept to himself, and a lot of kids just overlooked him. They didn't see the kind heart or the brilliant mind behind the shy smile. They just saw the kid who couldn't afford the cool new sneakers. Then came the biggest event of the year, the senior prom. The hallways buzzed with excitement. Girls were showing off pictures of their dresses, and guys were planning elaborate promposals. For most, it was a magical rite of passage. For Leo, it was just another reminder of everything he didn't have. He couldn't afford a fancy suit or a limo. But there was one thing he wanted more than anything: to ask Sarah to be his date. Sarah wasn't just any girl. She was smart, funny, and incredibly kind. She was one of the few people who always smiled at Leo in the hallway, who'd ask him about his day and actually listen. She saw past his old clothes. She saw him. Leo spent weeks saving every penny he could from his job. He skipped lunches and walked instead of taking the bus. Finally, he had just enough to buy a single, perfect red rose. One afternoon, with his heart pounding like a drum, he found Sarah by her locker. He took a deep breath, held out the rose, and asked her to prom. The whole hallway seemed to go silent. Sarah looked at the rose, then at Leo, and her face filled with pity. "Oh, Leo," she said, her voice soft, "that's really sweet, but I'm already going with Mark." Mark, the star quarterback, was standing nearby with his friends, all of them smirking. One of them snickered. "Did you really think she'd go with you?" Leo's world crumbled. The rejection was one thing, but the public humiliation was a crushing blow. He felt his face burn with shame. He just nodded, dropped the rose, and walked away, the sound of their laughter echoing behind him. He didn't go to school the next day, or the day after. The weight of it all was just too much. He felt invisible, worthless. It seemed easier to just disappear. But then, something inside him shifted. Was he going to let one moment of humiliation define his entire life? Was he going to let a bunch of kids who didn't know him, who didn't understand his struggle, win? No. He deserved to be there as much as anyone. He had worked just as hard, maybe even harder, to get through high school. He decided he was going to prom. Not for a date, not to impress anyone, but for himself. The night of prom arrived. Leo didn't have a fancy new suit. He wore his dad's old one, a bit too big in the shoulders, but clean and pressed. He walked into the glittering gymnasium, feeling every eye on him. He saw Sarah with Mark, crowned prom queen and king, surrounded by their popular friends. For a second, that old feeling of shame crept back in. He almost turned around and left, but then he remembered why he was there. He took a deep breath, walked past the dance floor, and headed straight for the stage where the principal was about to give the closing speech. He politely asked if he could say a few words. The principal, surprised but seeing the determination in Leo's eyes, handed him the microphone. The music faded, and a hush fell over the crowd. Everyone turned to look at the boy in the ill-fitting suit, standing alone on the stage. "Hi everyone," Leo started, his voice shaking slightly. "My name is Leo. Most of you probably don't know me. I'm the guy who stocks your groceries, the guy who sits in the back of the class. I know I'm not who you expected to see up here tonight. I don't have a fancy suit or a limo parked outside. A few weeks ago, I was too embarrassed to even imagine coming here." He looked out at the sea of faces. "I was rejected when I asked someone to prom, and I was laughed at. And honestly, it broke me. It made me feel like I was worth nothing. I wanted to hide, to just give up. But then I realized something. My worth isn't determined by the clothes I wear, the money my family has, or whether or not I have a date to prom." His voice grew stronger, filled with a passion no one had ever heard from him before. "My worth comes from my hard work. It comes from helping my mum pay the bills. It comes from staying up all night to study for a test, not because I want to be the best, but because I want to build a better future. It comes from being kind, even when the world isn't kind, back to me, and your worth, he said, pointing out to the crowd. Your worth comes from that, too. It's not about being popular or being prom king or queen. It's about your character. It's about how you treat people, especially the ones who have nothing to offer you. He looked directly at Sarah and Mark, not with anger, but with a calm sense of self-awareness. Prom is supposed to be a memory we all cherish, but let's make it a memory of more than just a party. Let's remember to be kinder, to look past the surface and see the person underneath. Let's build a community where everyone feels like they belong, not just the popular kids. He finished. Thank you, and congratulations to the class of Hey, handed the microphone back to the stunned principal. For a moment, there was complete silence. You could hear a pin drop. Then, one person started clapping, then another, and another. Within seconds, the entire room, the entire school, erupted in a thunderous standing ovation. It wasn't polite applause. It was a roar of respect. Students were looking at each other, and then at Leo, with new eyes. They saw him, truly saw him, for the first time. He wasn't the poor kid anymore. He was Leo, the guy who had more courage and integrity than anyone in the room. Even Sarah looked on, tears welling in her eyes, a look of profound regret on her face. That night, Leo didn't win prom king. He won something far more valuable, the respect of his peers and, most importantly, his own self. His speech became a legend at the school, a story told to incoming freshmen for years to come. It was a reminder that the truest crowns aren't made of plastic and glitter, but are forged in kindness, courage, and character. So the next time you feel like an outsider, remember Leo. Your value isn't defined by other people's opinions or by what you have. It's defined by who you are and the goodness you put out into the world. Be brave, be kind, and never, ever let anyone make you feel like you don't belong. Thank you so much for watching and sharing this time with me. If this story touched you, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more content that aims to inspire. We'll see you in the next video.